What's up everyone, welcome back to another video bay clip on my YouTube channel. So this week I decided to show you how I make this psychedelic stabs percussive sequence, as I really don't know how to call it, but in general, because it's percussive and also it's kind of I used a lot of bass stabs and a little bit of the tones and some percussions. I call it this way, and of course I use the psychedelic word in order to gain the interest, or that it sounds a little bit more interesting, so that some people can actually understand that it's all about psychedelic music. Anyway, so this sequence is something that I find super interesting, as I use a lot of these sequences when it comes for surprise moments. So let's say that there's a situation, the main break of the track, then we have the main theme on the break that's rising up, and then after that, for me at least, it's always a problem, like what should I do after that when it stops. So there's again this small type of the break, but what should I do after that? So there are some standard scenarios like kick and bass solo, like the only dry kick and bass, which is kind of a groove element, or changing like to glide bass line, or going full power or full on altogether with this main theme and other hi-hats or kick and bass and this. But these are like four scenarios that we can hear always in our tracks. So lately I got really bored from these standard types of arrangements or standard decisions, or anything that I did like so many times in the past. So when it comes to arrangement or something, I always try to look for some surprise moment, and this type of the sequences are pretty nice for that, because I mean, you heard it before, but it's not something that you heard it so many times and some trick that got used for like last 20 years. So in general, I just want to play before we go into it. So I have here like the full track. Here was the main break, but I deleted few of the channels so I can record this video more easily. Anyway, and this is the main part when I recorded all the way down, and I'm trying to speed up and make this uplifter from all the drums inside of it. And then in this moment, it's kind of a surprise moment after those fills over here. So it comes to the kick and bass and this stab. So let's hear it. And then after this moment over here, I start bringing back this main theme from the break. And that way, I kind of have the main theme inside of on the break, slowly coming up. But when it reaches this level, and when I start with the kick and bass, I pull in completely another sequence, and that way, kind of surprising moment. And for this part, because this is the part of a track when we are kind of pointing, so the main development of the track, I always would like to have something that's stronger, some like high moment of a track. So this percussive thing is really nice, and I decided to show you this because it's pretty complicated. Actually, I didn't think about to make it too complicated, but I added one layer, then I figure out, oh, something is missing, add another one, the third one. So this is the first thing I want to mention, is that it's not necessary to have so many layers, but the decisions when I decide to add another one is when I feel, oh, this sequence miss specifically that, and I will try to add one more layer that's gonna fix that or kind of fill that space which I hear is missing. So there is no idea of like I'm gonna make this in 10 layers and then I'm gonna just switch them and like searching around for results. So it's not a random decision. It's careful. It's actually felt a decision. So when I feel like something is missing, like like there's not enough punch, like I need to add some or kind of snare, short snare, or I'm gonna add something that's gonna fill or solve that problem which I hear. So I mentioned this because with people that I works on one-on-one teaching, it happened that they take it for granted, and when they see that I do it, but they do it how to say, they don't feel what's missing, and then it's even making a bigger problem. So it's not necessarily mean that you need to layer everything up. It's just I layer them because I just feel and I believe that this way, with many different layers, I'm getting a significant, unique sound design in my tracks, as just by using so many different layers in the same time, it's really hard that anybody will come up to the similar results, because the variation, the more channels we have, the bigger amount of possibilities that something is gonna sound different. Anyway, so all of them, because there's so many of the layers, all of them are going to this group, but I'm gonna mute all the processing from this group so far. And I have some automations over here, and I wanted to address that first because I cannot turn them off because they are already automated over here. So the first one is Effectrix. So in Effectrix is a multi-effects plugin which I used a lot. So there's like a reverse, crash. So there's like a plenty of effects inside of it, and when you mark those spaces, it's gonna apply only that effect on that time. So what I did, I found some nice preset, or it's possible that I was going through Chaos over here, which is gonna randomize it completely. And I affected only the last part, or actually only the last note of this pattern, like tam, 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 only the last hit, like tram, when there's a space for Effectrix to do its thing. And it's automated all the way like this. And the second thing is a black hole. And if you have the black hole, and if you play with it, and if you play with the size, you will hear the same thing as you change the delay time. So the black hole is also based on a delay, and this is how reverbs are actually working. So by changing the size, it's gonna create this pitch effect. But also I did like up and down of this pitch effect, like you can see over here, the size going up and down, and then also bypassed it. So I also only put the reverb on this last shot, like down, and then to glue it up. So I will play this first layer now, and you will hear straight away the Effectrix on the last note and black hole as well. So the first bass pattern is something which I started this sequence. And the first step inside of this process is to create the pattern, like rhythmical pattern. So there are many different ways how you can create this. Like in my case, it's like I used to play drums. So when I listen to something, they are playing in my head always backwards, and I can replicate them from my mind directly into the MIDI without much of the problems. But there's a technique, like if you have problem, because I see that many people are having a problem of writing down those ideas, is like maybe you can play it, you can turn the volume down, listen on the headphones, and use some of the microphone, and then try to play it with your fingers or punch in anything else and produce that pattern with whatever you want. And that way you can record it, you can match it with the audio, and then you will see exactly the hit points where you need to make this sequence, or you can convert it to MIDI, and that way you can use this pattern. Anyway, so the first bass. This was the first one, something that I started with, like a FM bass, which is kind of a little bit distorted, and it really have a really nice color, but I felt it's missing a little bit of low end, so I added another layer, which is kind of a bass. So nothing special, like Italio bass line, just with a lower level to fill up and to create these lower frequencies a little bit. When it comes for layering, be careful with the decay. Decay will be the most important from all. If you put more decay than it's needed, everything is gonna go to hell and it's gonna sound terrible. So pay attention of the sustain is usually going down, and then decay, try to find out and play with the decay. This is my biggest advice for this type of the process, especially when it's like a percussive or rhythmical patterns, because it's more about the pattern that we write than about its length. So the third layer is again the bass line, just with a octave above to fill up a little bit higher frequencies, and that way to provide a little bit more warmth, as kick and bass are pretty strong in this track and they have a lot of mids and highs as well. So I needed some layers in order to push this sequence a little bit in front of the kick and bass. Otherwise, everything gets like just go behind the kick and bass, because there's so much of information in the high and the mids. So the third one. Okay, so the fourth one I think I didn't use. This one is smaller, but I use this one to this one. This one is a little bit smaller, but I use this one just to bring the color. So the purpose of this is like to have this a little bit more resonance, a little bit of distortion there, just to fill up some and create some warmer sound. So all four of them. So this is from the side of the bassline or the tonal elements, and the next thing I started using is the toms, as I felt everything sounds good, but in order to make it a little bit more in front, I needed something with a stronger transients. So what I did, I used the first tom. And also this noisy thing on the beginning, it's just gonna make it to stand up a little bit. I think this is empty. Yes, okay, so then I used another tom. This one is more to provide a warmer punch, like tok tok tok, something to, again, it's like when I hear or when I listen into the mix, the whole sequence, like if I feel it's missing something like this, I'm gonna look and try to find something that's gonna fill that space which I felt is missing. And this is again the tone, but it is a lower one. This one is to provide a more low end and a better punch on it. Also what I did, I used the volcano because I want, as I just mentioned, the decay of it. And my way of making decay a little bit lesser here on the high frequencies is by applying a filter and then using the envelope. And this is gonna be triggered like every time the signal comes in, it's gonna apply the filter. And as you can see, the filter is, I think, 6 dB. No, it's 12 dB, but put it on 364 Hertz, and every time, as you can see here, every time the signal comes in, it's gonna apply that envelope on the filter. The same thing I did over here, just this time I used the Action Strikes. Action Strikes is like a really big percussive or the big cinematic drums, and they are amazing and I really love how they sound. But even if I kill the reverb and everything as they are recorded this way, they are always longer than I would like to, especially in a Psytrance music where we use like higher BPMs and a lot of information. So there's not much space for the percussive elements that are like kind of bigger in a release and decay. But I really love the color of it, and I wanted to have this on exactly on the start point of this sequence or every note. So I applied again the volcano, this time 6 dB on 83 Hertz, and this time I didn't use the automatic envelope, I used the MIDI note. Actually it's the same pattern as this one over here, just copied into the another MIDI channel and then sent to trigger that filter. So every time this note is hitting, it's gonna trigger that filter. So the envelope is, as I didn't show, so it's here, but when you go over here, envelope, and if you go to this much, so this is the amount of envelope it's gonna apply. So it's gonna go all the way up and close it really, really fast. So it's gonna sound like this. Without. I really like it, but this tail that stays, it's just destroying the mix. So. And this was that. So all of them together, as you probably know already, they are going to this group. And on this group, first thing I do, as there's so many different layers, I use to compress the mids to be sure that nothing gonna go too high in the mids. I use the stereo enhancer a little bit. I use the RC48, a little bit of reverb. This is really polite or nice small reverb. Then again, effectors which I showed, the black hole which I showed, and this loop mesh is kind of glitch effect from the Cubase, where every time you press some of those, it's gonna freeze them into the notes that you press, like one half, 1/3, 1/4, 1/6, and whatsoever. So I automated all of them over here. This is how it looks like. So this is like stepping like backwards. So it's like playing with a glitch effect and adding just on this spot over here where is the last hit of this pattern. After that, there's a C2, of course, compressing the mids, like everything that's in the middle. I'm gonna compress because there's not much of the space in the middle, because kick and bass are mostly mono, and in my case they are completely mono beside the hi-hat on the kick, which is just a little bit stereo, but anyway. So there's another, again, I don't know why there's a 2-time. Yeah, this is not by purpose. It's I just realized it right now. So I wanted to compress it more and I forgot that I used already one. So there's a 2 compressions, but anyway, I like how it sounds like this. And then I use equilibrium to remove all the stereo informations on the low end. And I love using equilibrium specifically for this because I have mid side over here and there are 2 faders and also 2 meters. So every time the sequence go through this EQ, I can see the levels like on the faders of the mid and side. So if I play, so this is my way of seeing how much of the mid information or the side information is going in, and then I can maybe bring up or bring down some of one of those elements. Of course, after this, I'm gonna bounce all of them together into the one, and then as the track is going to the final mix, I'm gonna start bouncing or recording all these segments that have so many different layers, as before I hit the mixing session, I want to have as less as possible channels in my project, and this is my way. Of course, I'm gonna save it, and always I can come back and like make certain changes and whatsoever. But as the track is going final to mix, I want to have less and less options to play around, as it's like super complicated already like this. Okay, this is one of the sound design tricks which I'm gonna also record in one of my upcoming courses. Actually, the next course is going to be exactly about sound design, and there's going to be like tons of things like this. I'm going to go more in details about all of these plugins and how to use them, why to use them, when, and how to deal with them, and when is the limit, and how to make best possible decisions for your music. Thank you very much for watching, and see you soon with another video. Bye, ciao.